And welcome back to the True Patriot podcast interview series, folks. And we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, the reigning angler of the year for the Colorado Kayak Bassmasters, Mr. Trev Stuckey. Trev, welcome to the show, man.
Well, thanks for having me, Gene. I'm honored to be here, buddy. And I don't know about legend, but we got some work to do. But
legend in the
we got him
works
this year. Yes, sir. Hopefully.
Heck yeah. Well, listen, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on our little show here and sharing talking fishing with us here and talking about the club and all things related to the podcast here. This is super cool. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Absolutely, buddy. You caught me at a good time. We're in between seasons at the shop. We have our second rifle season starting here in Colorado tomorrow, and that is our biggest season at the shop for us. So this was perfect to be able to sit down and not have to think about work for a little bit and talk about what we love, man, and those little brown fish.
Well, and for those people that are unaware, the shop you speak about, what is that shop?
So yeah, I actually work at a place called Steve's Meat Market. My better half actually owns Steve's Meat Market, but I've been there. This is my 21st year there.
Wow.
I joined up with Steve's right after I got out of college, which I went to Western over in Gunnison for a few years, didn't finish, but needed a job and came down to Arvada, and that's my hometown is Arvada, Colorado. That's where I was born and raised, went to school and everything. So I knew about Steve's, and we used Steve's before I ever started working there. My family hunted. Nice. And I asked for a job and got one, and lo and behold, I've been there ever since. Now, 4 years ago, the owner, Steve, who I consider my father-in-law, I mean, he's been a huge part of my life ever since I've been at the market. And Amy, that's his daughter. 4 years ago, he decided to retire. She purchased the building and the business, and we continue to just keep it going for him and
that's
us.
Awesome.
And we're the largest game processor in Colorado. We do anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 plus animals a year will come through our shop. Wow. So it's quite the operation. We're located in Old Town Arvada. We've been there for 35 years, I believe. And it's a busy time. I work hard this time of year so I can play hard in the off season.
That's right.
And it's a good gig for a guy who likes to fish. That's for sure.
Now, does the shop, does it sell meat retail as well? Or
we used to sell retail, and we actually had a good supplier to supply us with a USDA inspected meat that we could then turn into products for retail and keep separate from the game side. Nice. That's the number one thing is you can't do them both together. So we would shut down processing, do the retail side. But unfortunately, right before about 2 years or 3 years before the COVID deal happened, our supplier actually sold, and we were unable to find a good supplier to keep our retail side going and consistent. And that's the number one thing for us at the shop is finding good quality products to make, consistent good products there. So Steve actually decided to stop the retail so we could expand the game processing side even larger than it already was.
Sweet.
So we don't sell retail, but we do a ton of custom products for animals from all over the country, not just even here in Colorado. I just had an oryx from New Mexico, or deer from Nebraska, antelope from Wyoming, moose from Canada. I mean, you name it. We've seen it come through. We only do big game, so we don't handle anything with rabbits or small game or fish or anything like that. It's a niche business for sure, but one that needs to be around in this state for sure, because hunting it's huge. And I don't actually do too much hunting anymore. I actually more just took on the fishing side.
Sure.
So we could handle the business side during the season. And
I was going to say, it makes sense. You're most busy at your shop during that hunting season. So it's, kind of needed that you got to be on hand.
Yeah, I missed the fall bite you guys all get to go enjoy. So I have to watch for you. So, yeah, it's to do all the fishing for me there. So, But yeah, it's a cool business. Definitely glad I found it. It fits my lifestyle perfect, and also the support I have from the shop.
Heck yeah.
Not only with Amy, but the family and a lot of our employees that have been there 15 plus years. We're very lucky to have them return every year, especially nowadays when it's so tough to keep staff.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah,
That's awesome stuff, man. It's, you know, and most time we spend more time at work than we do at home, right? I mean, half the time
oh,
your work family, you know, sees you more time than the home life does. It seems like,
absolutely. Our
yeah,
season starts September 1st, and if I have a tournament in September, she'll let me go for that. However, our season is September 1st to February 1st, and we work every single day through that stretch, 7 days a week. We're at the shop one way or the other. And that's through Thanksgiving, through Christmas. One of us is there no matter what every day. And you need to be. And that's just because the volume is so high in such a short amount of time. And we do have seasons that go all the way through those holidays. And we need to be open for our guys. I mean, if a guy decides he wants to go out Christmas morning and do a little hunting and get something down, we as a responsibility need to keep that shop open so he has a place to bring that animal.
that's awesome, man. That's super, super cool. So on the fishing side, you say you focused on the fishing. How long have you been kayak fishing specifically?
So you might be surprised. I'm fairly new to the game as far as kayak fishing. I would say hardcore kayak fishing started in 2015, 16, I would say, when I got my first Hobie PA,
Nice.
and just gradually, climbed from there. Did a lot of the Kenny Hood, actually, who's also a CKB member of ours. He was huge and kind of opening my eyes to the tournament side of kayak fishing pretty soon after I had gotten my Hobie.
Right.
And KBF was, KBF was huge right then. I mean, we were going to national championships and at Kentucky Lake like they were this year, and we also were down in Shreveport, Louisiana. I mean, he kind of opened our eyes to that side, and I just loved it, and I ran with it. We had our tournaments here also going on with the Colorado Kayak Fishing Club, but I always wanted more, and I always been wanting to learn more, and I felt that in order for us to get where we would want to be, and I kind of speak for I think of quite a few of us in this club, is we need to travel and fish against people all over and different bodies of water all over. I love fishing our tournaments here in Colorado, but it just I wanted more, and
Yep.
with that came learning more tactics and a guy who hasn't fished any of our tournaments, but is huge in my coming up with the getting on the fishing side, is Big John Morezco. He's been a buddy of mine. He actually has worked at the shop with me a few seasons. Very cool dude that wasn't afraid to show a guy, not necessarily just here's this bait, you throw it, but you learn your own style. You fish with what you feel is comfortable and run with it and hit the water as much as possible. And we fished a ton together on the shore long before we ever were in our kayaks.
Nice.
Big John was huge, along with Kenny Hood and Johnny Kayak also. Those guys were huge into just opening a door for me that I never knew really was. I didn't think I would take on fishing as much as I did.
Right.
I played in bands a lot through my 20s, early 30s. I was in a couple of different bands. I drummed, I played bass, I sang, kind of heavy metal bands. For
Nice.
those that know me behind the scenes, they know I'm an old metalhead. And when I was in those bands, I always strive to want to play as many shows or do as much as we could. And it's very hard to get a group of guys together that are on the same page as that. Once I started tournament fishing and finding a little bit of success and continually, gradually, how I felt getting better, I knew I was in full control. I quit all the band stuff. It was more feeling like a negative thing now, because now I'm in full control on the fishing side, and I'm super competitive, and I can just take this and run with it. And I did, and tried to fish as much as possible. I fished a lot of tournaments in the last 4 to 5 years, and been very fortunate to go all over the place, and was lucky enough this year to hang on to enough tournaments to win AOI. So yeah, it's progressively gotten better every year since. Yes.
Two pieces there. Number one, you got bit with the bug, and there's a few of us out there that when you get bit with that tournament bug, I know plenty of guys that love to go fishing. They love the outdoors. They love engaging the outdoors, and tournament fishing just isn't for them. You know, it just doesn't draw them. It's not a.
Yep.
And what was funny to me is that on a basic level, we are kind of talking about gambling, right? I mean, a little bit.
Absolutely.
And if you ask anybody who knows me and you ask them, does he like to gamble? The response rate, no, not at all. Cause I can't stand gambling, to be honest with you. It's such a, I don't even buy scratch tickets. Cause I'm like, why would I waste the dollar? I don't win, you know,
every crank of a slot machine I'm just thinking of lures I could have bought or line that I should have bought. I mean, that's my mentality now. When it comes to gambling is if I'm going to waste money, I want to waste it on tackle because at least that makes me happy. And I know, what I'm getting back when I spin that.
Sure.
I'm a huge swim bait guy. I don't fish a lot of swim baits, but I'm a huge swim bait guy and collector back here. So so I mean, it's if I'm going to spend money, it's usually going to be towards the fishing side, no doubt. Gambling,
well, and I think maybe in this, it could be an illusion to us, but we control more of our own destiny. Sure, we spend money at these events. We are trying a chance to win our money back and take our buddies' money at the same time.
Yep.
And whether or not it's, we feel like we have more control over the situation, or maybe it's an illusion that we do, who knows? But I know it's not just pure luck. I am one of those people that says, I don't care who you are, how good you are, Denny Brower or Joe Blow, dude, luck is a factor to some degree somewhere. Mm-hmm. Now you can make your own, but you still need to have that perfect storm of things come together. Absolutely. That's outside of your control. But in gambling stuff, when you go in that side of things, it's like, it's just like you said, you pull a lever and that's your interaction.
Yeah.
You put a deal, there's nothing to that. But it's
not going to work. Yeah.
Nope. And it sounds like, clearly you got bit with the bug, because when you do get bit with it, when you combine the competitive nature type deal along with the outdoors, dude, it is, I don't know. It doesn't matter the size of fish for me. When I catch a bass, it's just an adrenaline hit.
Oh, absolutely.
I love seeing them big and small. Now, obviously the big ones, when those come in, dude, the shaking, it's like buck fever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It hits. And I knew at that point that, I have an issue here, but it's a good issue, and I'm gonna, push with it. But the second piece I want to bring is you and I think are from the same lineage. When you go into something, dude, it's all in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I just
don't like doing things half-assed.
I don't like doing things half-assed. And I'll tell you, I've lost a ton of tournaments and money to a lot of hammers in this state, and not only in this state, but traveling. And that competitiveness of, man, I got to try to get these guys, these guys, it's consistent. And you've seen it too. There's consistently the same hammers, no matter where we go, these guys perform, and they're getting better every year.
Yep.
And if you don't stay on top of your game, you're going to get left by the wayside. And another huge drive for me was going to these tournaments and just going out to Kentucky Lake for the national championship and catching one fish in 2 days and having to have that drive back home. I mean, you just came back from Pickwick. You know how that's a long drive to reflect. Well, I've
Dude.
had a lot of those drives in my short career, a lot of them. I mean, the first 3-4 years of tournaments, I was happy to even bust a top 10 or say, you know what, I got my limit this tournament. So that drive of just I hated that feeling of leaving a tournament feeling and you see guys with these big bags or I hated that feeling. I hated
Yep.
driving home. I had my music blasting, I'm banging on the steering wheel on, how I should be getting better. That drive right there, along with trying to take a smarter approach to how I'm approaching the water in the next tournament. And just spending time on the water. I know that's a cliche that everybody hears all the time, but there is no
It's
doubt
it.
about it. Time on the water is everything, hands down.
Absolutely. It's, and that's a lot of new folks coming into our sport. When they hear that response, they think it's, I don't know, they think it's maybe a cookie cutter response that everybody
Right.
gives them when they don't have a better answer for them. But if any of you are new to tournament angling, take it from two of us sitting here that have been doing this for a few years. This is the truth. The more time you're on the water, the cleaner you get in decision making, the more comfortable you get with your gear. And it could be something, this is going to sound funny, but it could be something as maybe the way a reel reacts when you start getting towards the end of your line. Maybe there's a slip. Maybe there's just something about that reel, that's a little bit different on the retrieve. You will subconsciously lock that in your head and you'll make adjustments to these things.
Absolutely.
And it's the little things like that when it becomes, this is what I had said, what helped me at Lewis and Clark have my best finish of the year was the very fact that we went to Swanson. The following weekend, I went to Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
And
right.
then the following weekend, I went up to Lewis and Clark. Or maybe it was one of those, it was 3 weekends back to back. I was traveling, but dude, I was on the water consistently. I was practicing. I was hanging around other sticks out there. We were taught. My mind was locked in on what I was doing.
Right.
And while Lewis and Clark fished tough, we were able to make adjustments. And I remember the one key piece, and I got to find a way to duplicate this. On day 2, when I started day 2 in 5th place after day 1, I was one of only like 8 anglers to catch a limit out of like a field of 60.
Nice.
Day 1 fished tough. Day 2, I tried something a little bit different because I found this flat up on top of one of the main channel areas, and I thought, you know what, maybe those smallies are pulling up there, so I wanted to go up and throw a spook around and throw a little buzz bait.
Something in your gut told you that, right?
So,
and that's the stuff you can't teach. So that's important, that something in your gut told you about this spot for day 2. And right there, that's where the start is right there. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And here is the interesting part though. So I went up there and I spent the greater portion of, lines in till, the sun was, starting to come up, and I didn't catch anything. I spent probably maybe too much time there, but I'm sitting here and I remember going, okay, well, we'll go back into the backwaters again, 'cause I'm not too far from there. So I'll just cook into the backwaters. It didn't bother me that my gut feeling led me wrong. I knew it was a good answer. I know at some point or another, I'm telling you, smallies pull up on that flat. I know they do. Wasn't.
It can be looked at 2 ways there. It didn't pan out, right? So that eliminated that water. That's not a fail by any means. That's actually good. That steered you to another direction, but something good or bad in your gut told you to check it out first. And I'm a firm believer you have to follow your instincts. That's number 1 for sure. So that wasn't necessarily a fail by any means. You eliminated water. That's huge.
Totally. And so our next decisions, we moved back into an area trying to find some fish. I think I boated like 2 fish, and I looked at the standings real quick. Well, I was sitting in 11th place. I'm like, whoa, everybody started catching them.
Yep.
And here was the part. This is where time on the water, that point, just to hammer your point home here. My initial reaction when I saw that was, wow, I bet you the river's starting to fish normal now. It wasn't, oh crap, I got to go catch more fish.
Right.
For the first time all season, my response was, huh. So I'm betting that means the river's fishing a little bit more normal, and now guys are starting to get on them. Okay.
That's good.
Well, let's go see what we can find then. So I started going and looking a little more traditional river fishing that I used to do back on the Mississippi and La Crosse area.
Nice.
And dude, next thing you know, bing, 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 I got a small, like probably 65-inch, limit up on the deal. Now I'm sitting in about 9th. And it was, all right, now let's go find them big brown river smallies, because they may not be heavy, they're skinny, but I knew they're going to be long if they're in that current.
Absolutely.
So I just totally was able to focus in. And it was only like a week after I got back that I started thinking about that, going, dude, I didn't freak out at all. And by the end of the day, I'm in 3rd place. I'm a 1/4 inch out of 2nd.
How cool is that?
If I could have culled that 15-incher out of, because I had like a 19, a pair of 18s, a 17, and a 15. If I could have got rid of that 15 for another 18, we would have been banging on the door for first, man. It was that quick.
Wow.
And it was one of those cases that I realized it was that time on the water that you just mentioned that was the difference maker.
Yep.
And it just became second nature. Longer you're off, harder it gets.
We talked a little bit before recording about practice and leaving, a few days if you can. And I know it's super tough for a lot of guys. I'm very fortunate that my work schedule is through the non-tournament season. So that's a huge plus for me. But another huge thing is if you can get multiple days of practice before your tournament, that I feel that is a night. Not always. I mean, you'll see some guys come in the night before, sleep in their truck, and just wreck them the next day. I mean, it does happen, but
Kenny
coming from a Kenny
sleeping at the ramp or on a corner Kenny, somewhere.
Yep, absolutely. And he'll whack him, man.
He does. But he'll top 5 even after doing it.
So it works for some guys, but I just think even not so much as catching fish, those practice days of just eliminating water, getting familiar with what the lake's doing, that was huge. And I've actually learned a lot of that from Jason and Paul Roth and Jason Duong. Those guys, I've been, losing money to those guys for a long time. But I'll tell you, with that same breath, those guys would go out of their way to do anything for anybody. I mean, and they, they have taught me so much on the traveling side and what to expect and practice and how important practice is to get out there and not lean on fish. That's one thing that, I
guys
really
make mistakes.
I don't like about having pre-fish day the day before the tournament is just guys going out and just leaning on fish and then wondering where they're at the next day. And I was one of them. I totally was. I'd go out and I would try to stick every fish I could before a tournament because I didn't know any better. I just wanted to try to find something, but instead of really breaking down what I needed to be, I was just worried about, I feel like I can catch a few fish tomorrow because I did good today. And it would always wind up biting me.
Don't you think that in the early stages, it's a confidence thing? When you catch them, you're feeling strong now. You feel like you got them. What you don't realize is you won practice, dude.
Yep.
You're about to get schooled real hard. What happens the following day when you try to go back there?
Yep. There's always the guy that rolls in and like, man, I busted 90 inches plus today, and it's a Friday night, and we're getting our identifiers, and he's stoked. And then by midday the next day, he's not even on the board. And it happens. And so no, practice is huge. I mean, you don't even have to wet a line. I mean, just getting in your yak and looking at your graphs, seeing what the water's doing, what the clarity is, what the temps are, moon phases. I mean, all that stuff. before you even throw your first cast. I mean, and that goes back to not having the pressure you have on tournament day because you've already eliminated 3 points down the lake or whatever. I think that's huge, and that was huge for me the last 2 seasons, is making myself get out and get at least 2, if not more, days of practice before the tournament, and also even a couple months before the tournament. I'll go out
Nice.
and look at the lake when the water's down, look for structure, and then kind of map stuff out before the water comes up. I mean, that I just like to be as familiar as I can with the lake I'm going to be fishing at, for sure.
Are you like me though, where in practice goes around and you do smack a really nice fish? You're like, no,
It happens it seems like it always happens. Yeah.
Red Willow. I had a 19.5 inch off of a freaking big old stump up there by where we had the awards. I was actually fishing that arm up there.
Yeah.
And I didn't fish their tournament day. I went a total opposite direction. I made a big gamble and it did not pay off. But yeah, I was in practice. I was coming down there. Yeah, I hit that thing. And dude, when he smacked that jig, there was just no denying that we were on. And I remember getting it up going, I don't know whether to cry or just yell right now and get a picture of this big old beast. It's like, oh.
Well, it's cool on one end because we are just fishing. So sure. I mean, if you stick a good fish and yeah, I mean, of course we all want that big kicker on tournament day, but yes. I mean, if you do stick that good one, you're still just fishing. You have to be excited, have a little confidence in the fact of what it ate, and hope that maybe you can find her sister, the next day. But no, I think that happens quite often where, that day before we'll stick that pig, and it sticks in the back of your mind a little bit, but just know it's still a good fish and you still got to celebrate it.
Dude, on tournament day, I fished so much wood because of that fish. And I found just, all dinks, where on the side I was on. I needed to get down by that dam down there to find better quality. I was way up.
You got to think, I mean, you had, who was all at that event and who was pre-fishing. I mean, there wasn't a lot of good stuff that wasn't overturned. I mean, there's a lot of sticks in that group that we weren't the only ones that probably, pegged a good fish or two a couple days before the tournament there. Yeah. And, but it's a lake like Red Willow, like going back to what we talked about, a lake like Red Willow is just phenomenal. Yep. And gives us Colorado guys a chance to really go out and stick good fish. I mean, you don't know for sure what you're going to pull out of that place. I mean, there's monsters in there.
Well, and that's, this brings us to the club that where I met you at the CKB here, Colorado Kayak Bassmasters, one of 2 phenomenal clubs. We, everybody that I've interviewed in the past week here, we've all agree that we're very, very grateful and fortunate in the state of Colorado, which, let's be honest, is not known for bass fishing. Here we are in this state with 2 phenomenal clubs that have their own lanes. You know what I mean? One could say that the bass on one side and Colorado Kayak Bassmasters, that there's a competition, but not really. Because the way things are run, the way they do things, when they try to work with each other on schedules so we don't conflict too many times. I think last year there was only a couple events that kind of walked over each other.
They were close. Yeah.
Yep. But other than that, it's one of those things that those folks in the Colorado Kayak Bassmasters, we're following bass rules, and we all know what's at stake there. A shot at getting to that classic, dude. Yeah. I mean, and what I found is something Eric Ali pointed out when I interviewed him. The thing about the
stick, by the way,
he is.
Dude, yeah, he's been a hammer for a long, long time, man. That guy can catch him for sure.
He said the CKB, the thing about the CKB, everybody that enters that thing has a legitimate shot at winning it. Dude, you are going against straight killers in the CKB, every time you go out. And I echoed the fact that, being the new guy this year, you guys welcomed me in like I had been here for years, man. It was like you said, Jason. I didn't know Jason from Adam, and I think I started chatting at him. Trying to remember where we were. Might have been Trinidad. Was maybe the first time I met him there. I had seen him, obviously. Dude was, lighting up the lamp, everywhere. But I hadn't had a chance to meet him, and we just start chatting, and it felt like I knew the guy, for years. And it's like, hey, I can tell right now, this dude's a stick. This guy's got tons of experience out here.
Absolutely.
And he's wickedly friendly. I mean, everybody in this club has been amazing, which is, I told James this when I interviewed him. This is the way, in my opinion, Bass, that brand, this is the way those clubs were supposed to be created.
I agree.
No clicks. We go out to dinner. We share information. We talk to people. I mean, like you said, when it comes tournament day, hey, heads going down. We're going to business at that point.
We're going after each other. Definitely. No,
but
definitely.
I know for a fact, if I see you need something, I know if I'm in trouble, I don't ever even worry about that.
Right.
It's like, no, these guys, we're going to take care of each other while we're out here, make sure everybody's cool. But yeah, we're looking to take each other's money. That's what we're here to do.
And we have a huge crossover. I think the majority of the Colorado Kayak Bassmaster guys and gals, they all fish CKFC tournaments always too. And I think the only real draw between the two is the fact that Colorado Kayak Bassmasters will travel and don't mind traveling out of state,
right?
Which I think is huge. Now, CKFC likes to keep it, hometown, which is totally cool. And they really have gotten some great turnouts over the last few years. I remember fishing some early CKFC events when we were lucky to get, 12, 15 dudes out there, guys and girls out there to fish. And now, I mean, if we don't have over 40 or more, that's pretty surprising, and that's good to see too. And no, I mean, what a great club, and I know you're going to have a lot to do next year with those guys being the new. I don't know what is the title for that next year for the Roman Warriors Foundation.
Oh, so yeah, the Colorado Kayak Fishing Club has selected Roman's Warrior as the beneficiary of their donation, since they choose a local one each year.
And how cool is that?
It is, man. It's the fact that we are, kayak fishing is right at the heart of what we do. It's along with the just anything outdoors, recreational therapy. That's the point. As long as there's an objective in mind,
that's
and
great.
We've got something that we can take these heroes and warriors out, first responders, veterans, Gold Star families, and so the fact that they're going to choose us as that is such an awesome honor. And I think I'm getting it to a joking stage now with a few guys, because I've been asked, am I going to fish some of those events? And unfortunately, I've told Jeremy this last night when I was interviewing him. I am a motor guy. I'm sorry. It's a propulsion thing.
Yeah.
I just don't enjoy the pedal aspect. Maybe I would in a different craft, but I'm not going to get in a different craft. I've got my New Canoe Unlimited. I'm part of Team New Canoe now.
Right.
I love the company. I love the team, and it's
your schedule too. I mean, between the All-American and we don't know what Bass is going to do yet with their schedule. I mean, I would love to see, a handful of us at least try to make one or two of those events this year.
Heck yeah, man.
Along with the All-American, hopefully. And then we're going to Kansas, we're going to Nebraska with CKB.
Yep.
It's a good thing, but yeah, we're stretched out there. Yep. And like I mentioned earlier before, I'm always looking for the next new place to go, the next new tournament, that I haven't been to, a body of water I haven't been to. I love the learning aspect behind that, and I'm looking forward to hopefully doing even more traveling this year coming out of the season. And I have my fun trips planned too that I try to go. I try to go to Lake Fork every year if I can. Coming out, that's my little present to myself coming out of hunting season is for the last couple of years. And I'm still looking for that personal PB to break down there. And but it's not really about that so much. It's just going down to the place that I fished my first Tournament of Champions tournament. I don't know how long ago that was.
Nice.
A crew of us went down there. That was before the KBF or Hobie or any of that stuff got going. We did a yak for it, I believe is what the tournament was called back then, but it was still using cameras with memory cards, and it was a while
Wow.
back, and that's always held a special place in my heart for Lake Fork, and I try to get back there every year if I can. And then this year, kind of exciting news. I've been in contact with Brandon Polinick to do a day or so with him in Idaho. Hopefully June or July. We haven't picked the elites don't have a tournament June or July, surprisingly. So he's going to keep an eye on the water in Idaho. And the cool thing about my schedule is I can kind of be on standby. And if he decides it's time to go and I have a tournament that's scheduled during that time, well, that tournament's going to take a back seat this year, because there's no way I'm missing out on going up and fishing with BP. And
dude, that's a once in a lifetime. Yeah, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You are going to absolutely. I mean, the hardest part is going to be don't fanboy out. You know what I mean? I mean, that's.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what's really cool and comfortable is actually we've been talking quite a bit this last week, and there really hasn't been talking about any fishing. He is a diehard hunter.
Awesome.
And we have just been talking shop, which is, my comfort zone, and totally cool. And to talk more shop with him than anything. So no, I think we're going to have a blast together. He's got that same drive being a wrestler. I played sports all through high school and stuff. I think that competitiveness is, I just like the way he grinds and his mental attitude of just pushing and trying to be the best. He's just such a cool guy. And super looking forward to that for sure.
That's awesome. Good stuff. So I want to take a look here real quick. I've got it up in front of me. We're talking Colorado Kayak Bassmasters. We had 5 events, if memory serves. We had our 4 events and then the state championship. So we started Horsetooth, then Trinidad, Swanson, Red Willow, and Pueblo. And if I've got this right, I'm seeing Horsetooth. It looks like you came in 3rd. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And then 2 second place deals, Trinidad and Swanson.
Correct.
Red Willow, I'm going to say probably 5th or 6th?
I think it actually was 7th.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. I think it was 7th. Yeah, I kind of I slipped up a little bit on that one.
And then the state championship looked like 10th or 11th.
Yeah, that was basically going into Pueblo's state championship. I had to win, I believe, in order for it to have any effect on my points overall.
Because we only get judged on the top 3.
On the top 3. Yeah.
That we have. So that's important for folks to understand, is that in kayak angling, a lot of times the tournament levels is that we had 5 total events, but you get basically pointed on your best 3 at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going into Pueblo, not to fast forward through the other finishes,
that's all right.
But Pueblo, I've won there before. It's a lake that I've won at. It's one of my favorite places in Colorado to fish, just because I just like the way it sets up. It fits my wheelhouse pretty good. I knew I had to win that tournament in order to help me out in points at all. I had Jason Duong just breathing down my neck all season because he's a stick. I mean, I've always joked that Jason could catch a fish out of a puddle in a parking lot if you gave him enough time. I mean, that dude is just got fishy instincts like no other. And I knew that I was not going to, after my start of the year in such a good first 3 tournaments, I knew I couldn't let off the gas. Going into Pueblo, I had to win. By early morning, I checked the scoreboard and just see Leslie Ali putting the hammer on all of us.
No kidding.
I decided to abort my plan of what I was using, and I tied on a swim bait. I went out to points, and I just kind of threw for broke. I knew in order
Swing for the fence.
to just swing for the fence, and about 3 or 4 casts off my second point, I wind up hooking my best fish of the day, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep this in my hand and run this the rest of the way. With an hour left in the tournament, I still hadn't caught another fish. So then I had aborted the swim bait, went back to try to fill my limit, and was unfortunate doing that. So I wasn't on the right fish to win that tournament anyways. I knew it was going to be super tough. And congrats to Leslie on, I mean, she just put a clinic on out there that day, and she's going to represent us so well at the Bassmaster Championship. Super excited for her. But yeah, so then to go back to how the season started, Horsetooth, knew that one was going to be a fun one, but had to stay consistent on the fish that I found in practice. And I was on them. I just needed, a little bit more. Trinidad was the heartbreak of the year for me as far as tournaments go on what I should have had done. I felt like I had that tournament won. Was coming back to the ramp feeling like I had that tournament won. And lo and behold, Jason, with I believe he was under 15 minutes maybe or so left in the tournament, pulled up and was able to beat me by 1/4 inch at Trinidad.
Ouch.
Well, you fast forward to the Pueblo Championship. Jason was in second place when the standings had went offline. When I seen that, I did the math, and I knew that if he finished second or higher, he was going to beat me for Angler of the Year. And I actually had thought on the way back to the ramp that I had lost it. I thought, here's my season. I lost to Jason, which is totally fine. He's such a great dude, and one of my closest friends on the water. So it was bittersweet. I was so happy for him, but in turn, I thought I had lost it.
Right.
And we had gotten to the awards, and with some suspense there, I was able, when the final standings came out, James Strawbridge had caught a fish within the last 15 minutes to leapfrog Jason, which knocked him down to third and allowed me to secure Angler of the Year by 1 point.
1 point. 296 for you, 295 for Jason.
Now, had Jason finished second, it would have went to a tiebreaker for both of us over total inches overall for the year. And had that happened, he would have beat me again by 1/4 inch.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking probably going to be tough to see as close of an AOY chase for us as that
227.25 for you, 227.5 for him on the total. Wow.
Which goes back to that Trinidad tournament where I had lost that in the last half hour by 1/4 inch.
Right.
But what a suspenseful, definitely final hour there for sure at Pueblo, but super happy to hang on to it. And I know it won't last long. I know next year these guys, they're going to be gunning for me, and I know it's going to be tough to try to get it again. I know that.
Yeah, it's you got a stacked field. There's no doubt about it, for sure. These the anglers that come out there and that partake in this thing throughout the entire year. How would you describe your fishing style? You a power guy? You a finesse guy? You versatile? How would you describe your style of fishing?
A big fat junk pile. I would say big fat junk pile. I am the jack of all trades and a master of none. By far. When you see my yak at the end of a tournament, you just never know. I will try everything and all to try to find something that's off the wall from what somebody else is throwing, maybe something the fish haven't seen. I'm a huge JDM tackle guy. I don't even want people to know how much money I spend on Japanese tackle. And a lot of that is to thank Paul Roth and Jason and John Morezco and other guys who have turned me on to the JDM side of the world, which has gotten a few of my paychecks, no doubt about it. But no, 100% junk fisherman. I don't have any just one certain strength that I would say I excel at. I will tell you, this year was the first year that I had messed around with forward-facing sonar. I have Lowrance an HDS Live with active target, and it's still a learning curve, but it's definitely been another weapon to use. And I look forward to spending as much time on the water with that next season to try to get to where it's just second nature, like everything else is. It's fun, but I find myself spending more time than I need to. It worries me on tournament days to try to focus on live target, because if I waste a lot of time, I feel
it's like if you're like me, it feels like bed fishing almost, where you're trying to get him to bite, trying to get her to bite, trying to get her to bite, and she won't, and won't, and won't, and won't. And it's like, I need to leave this fish and get on to the next one.
Absolutely.
Because I am burning too much time up trying to make something happen that may or may not come to fruition. Yep.
Now it is an eye opener to realize, how many fish you actually have around your bait.
Right.
But it really, what I love using it for is, finding active fish. I mean, that's really what it boils down to, is finding active fish. And then from there, start playing, start toying around, seeing what's going to work. But like I said, I'm not a master on it by any means. I still need to spend a lot of time with it, but it was a tool that I did add on this last season that was beneficial, and it was super beneficial in a couple late catches in some tournaments. Horsetooth happened to catch a roamer. I believe he was in 35 feet.
Wow.
Chased me up to 20. I was actually trying to get a cell phone signal and was just kind of meandering out in the middle of nothing, and happened to look down on my active target, and there was one loner that was like 35 feet down. I flipped over to him with a drop shot. He come up like a rocket, 15 foot or so, got him to the boat, and winded up culling like a 3 inches, I believe, or something on that bag. So, I mean, it was just, it just a random, totally random, but I would have never known that fish was there.
Exactly.
And so it's a learning curve, but a fun one. And I don't think it's going anywhere. So if you have the means to get it, I would definitely recommend whatever your style is: Humminbird, Lowrance, Garmin.
And you just got to commit, right? I mean, this was our first season also running live scope. I'm a Garmin guy. And so running the live scope out there, this was I learned enough this season to know that I got a lot to learn.
Yep.
And that I need to improve my setup on where I position it on the kayak so that I can get to it and use it. The last thing I learned is I need a switch on it, because I, like you, decided I'm not going to live on this thing. Okay. I'm going to trust my instincts. I'm going to keep looking, using my traditional, using my contours. Mm-hmm. But when I get to a target, something specific I want to look at, I want to be able to kick this thing on and gain that efficiency. It's like, oh, so I see the point, I see the rock edge there, but there is just no life there. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time here then. Maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 casts, type deal, and then boom, I'm out of here.
Move on. Yep.
That's the
using
piece.
It more efficient. Yeah. Being efficient with it. I mean, because it's awesome to roll up to a brush pile and be like, oh boy, what's in there messing around. Now, I will tell you, when I first got it, I think we were down at John Martin reservoir early in the year, and I hadn't messed with it too much, and I had dropped it in front of a brush pile, and it looked like highways of so many different fish going every which direction. I didn't know what was a carp, what was a catfish, so I didn't even know where to begin.
Right.
But so
like sensory overload.
Right. So I actually, during my fun fishing days, would go to bodies of water where I would eliminate a lot of the other fish out of there, so I could start learning. Okay, I'd hit a smallmouth. That's trout, or those are some walleye.
Yep.
That helped out quite a bit. but still not 100% confident in running it through a whole tournament day.
Right.
But yeah, by all means, I mean, it can teach you a lot about what the fish are doing for sure.
Exactly. And that's like you said it best, man. It's a tool. Folks that, that goofiness about banning, this kind of stuff from it. That's just, it's ridiculous. It's tech Naziing your way through something like that. It's not a way to fix this stuff. The same, when everybody was running flashers and the first traditional sonar came out, someone probably was like, what is that?
Absolutely. Well,
it's
back to like KBD with 2D. I mean, he dominated the game with 2D for a long time.
Yep.
But you see the forward facing sonar, those same guys that are dominating that I feel right now with it are the same guys that were dominating without it. I mean, those guys are going to catch them one way or the other.
Yep.
So to say, you want it to go away, it's not going away. I mean, you got to adapt. Just like if you weren't throwing a chatterbait a few years ago, I bet you're throwing one now.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, you've seen how many checks have been cashed with the chatterbait now, and you have to be able to adapt. And the bummer is the price. It can get expensive for a lot of guys, and it's hard to pull the trigger on on that when you have other stuff. And I get that, but if you're serious about this game, I definitely think you're missing out if you don't have it. And you're going to have guys going right around you, catching fish you never know were there.
My reasoning when I was in the bass boat world was, listen, you can either complain about it or you can go ahead and go out there and get your butt kicked by it. Which way do you want to go?
Yep.
It's you need to just, I mean, for all those years that I was in a bass boat, man, running around the country, and never had live scope. I'm not an offshore guy. So, I'm more target driven, and where my approach was. And, I got my butt handed to me and some of these fisheries where if you're not getting offshore, man, you're coming in with the walk of, shame with a real dinky little bag, to the scales, where these guys are bringing in footballs, that they were peeling out of 25 foot of water or whatever.
Right.
And
so I'm the same way. I was a shallow water guy because I felt like I always have to have something visual to throw at, when I'm buzzing the shore, looking for stuff, whether it's submerged or not, getting active target forward facing sonar. I find myself drifting farther out into no man's land because I'm seeing what's going on in live time below me. Yep. And it's like, oh, wow. I hear about guys catching these fish out here deep. Now I can see these fish out here deep. Now I need to teach myself how to catch these fish out deep, and what's going to work for me. I'm a firm believer to not chase other people's bites. I did that starting out. Oh, this guy threw this yesterday, so I'm going to throw it today and hope what happens. No, I that has never worked for me. I like to just figure out my own way, and I've lost a lot because of.
Should be good there. Sorry about that, folks. Had a little bit of our of course, technical loveliness. Computers, yay!
No
worries, man. That's and that's the whole thing, right? Is as you advance through, I think the days, if you go back in bass fishing, I love the lore, the history of our sport. I love where it come from. And it's kind of cool when someone says Denny Brower, the first thing that ought to lock in your head, if you know our sport, is pitching and flipping.
Absolutely.
It's not smallmouth drop shot.
No.
Now, when you hear Brandon Polinick, you think drop shot. This guy is going to, find Davy Jones' locker on a drop shot and throw it.
Does.
Yeah, exactly. And throw it in the boat. But the days of, that specialty angler, being able to dominate a field, Brandon, is when you think of him and you hear that drop shot, don't you ever try to sleep on this dude's shallow water skills. Cause Angler of the Year recently here proves this dude can do anything out there. Jacob Wheeler, arguably one of
Wheeler,
the
same
best,
thing.
best anglers in the world right now. This guy, I watched him personally go into the Mississippi River there. I marshaled an event there and watched this
Oh,
guy throw
cool.
a frog catching fish where 25 other guys were trying to throw frogs and no one was catching them. He's catching them, in these areas.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like his instincts are like he knows when to quit a certain thing and move to another. But the point is, versatile angler. I mean, you've got to add and have these tools in your, in your arsenal if you want to compete across, because it's one thing to fish the same bodies of water. You know what I mean? If you have a home lake and you fish that and that's all you fish. But when you do have desires to fish against other anglers across the country, new bodies of water, dude, if you want to make these trips worthwhile, you're spending your money on, then yeah, you need to be very
100%.
versatile. Yeah,
100%. I
these.
mean, you want to get humbled real quick is, fish your home body of water out here and just wreck them, and then go enter you a tournament in Texas or go enter you a tournament in Alabama or Tennessee, and you're going to get humbled real quick by those anglers out there. Why? Because those guys are fishing year round. A lot of them have come from the boat side or have fished out of a boat their whole life.
Yeah.
And you just are stacked against such a huge field of hammers that have been literally chasing bass their whole life. It's second nature to them. They're familiar with those bodies of water or how they fish. We don't have a cypress tree that I know of here in Colorado anywhere. And I'll tell you what, your first time fishing around them, it's unique. It's different. Fishing the swamps of Louisiana or going down to places like Lake Fork or with all the submerged trees. I mean, I don't know how many times I bent my pedals or lodged myself up onto trees down at Lake Fork simply because I didn't know where to go. I just was trying to go fish and, just hoping that my abilities from fishing in Colorado would pan out down there. Well, they didn't. I mean, I have learned a lot of lessons fishing Texas, Louisiana, where I have been outmatched by fish. I've had giants broke off. I personally, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, but I personally watched Kenny Hood lose what we feel was as close to a double-digit bass that we have seen in person.
Wow.
On a lake outside of Shreveport during the national championship. And I think we can still hear the echo of that yell going down the valley. I mean, I felt so bad for him. That fish went airborne, spit the jig out. It was definitely in person for me the biggest bass I had seen someone ever hook.
Wow.
And it just you have to be ready for a different game when you leave out of state, and you're going to get humbled if you don't have versatility and something to fall back on when stuff isn't working. You can't give up. You have to try to figure it out. And that's where I took my lumps. I mean, not just in Colorado, but even traveling to the out of state tournaments and just getting whooped and finishing in the hundreds or wherever and taking that long drive home. I don't like that feeling and don't want that feeling anymore. So you have to step your game up, no doubt about it. One way or the other, you need to step it up.
Well, and it's when you add in, I mean, this reigns true in the bass boat side of things, but it's even more amplified on the kayak side, which is it's not even just the fish of the other areas, it's the bodies of water. When you get on a body of water like Table Rock, there's nothing in this state or surrounding states that comes close to this. If you're a fan of bass fishing, then you've got to add that in because you realize you're actually fishing on, if they made a Mount Rushmore of bass fishing, Table Rock's going to be in the discussion. I mean, more champions have been crowned out of that water. Beautiful and it's a tough fishery, man. It's not just throw a jig overboard and bang, you're hooking on something. You got to work for those. But man, the reward is there. And when you take in the sheer size of some of these bodies of water, I went to a national championship at Old Hickory. Literally in Tennessee, literally from the launch, ran 40 miles one way
Oh, wow.
to
Yeah,
go
that's
find
crazy.
grass. That's what
To
I was
find-
looking for. And I
Right
would
on.
just kept going up this, the river, the Tennessee River there until I found what I was looking for. And it
Yeah.
was literally 40 miles when I mapped it out and realized, well, that's why my gas tank looks the way it looks
Oh, yeah.
now.
Isn't that something? I mean, it's so overwhelming to
Yeah.
TVA lakes, or like you said, Table Rock, for instance. I mean, just
Yep.
a Grand Lake. I mean, where you couldn't see the other side of the shore with a spotting scope. I mean, it's miles and miles across, and here you are in this little plastic boat
Yep.
trying to break down water. And the hammers that are in these bodies, they know what to do. You're coming out of state, it can be overwhelming, and it has been overwhelming. There's been
Yep.
times when you're like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to begin. It all looks the same to me.
It's like
So,
take a dart to the dartboard and okay, we're
exactly,
going to that
right,
arm right there. And we're going to
right.
rip it apart, see what we can find.
Well, that just goes back to a ton of study at home back here too. I mean,
Yes.
Google Earth and maps and videos, and try to go back as far as you can see, that, and just learn as much as you can before you get there. Because once you're there and you're on the ground and the boots are on the ground per se, it's a whole nother ball game, and you want to be as comfortable as possible for sure.
Totally, totally. That in the kayak game for sure, the leading up to tournament, the study portion, again, it's important in the bass boat world, but I think it's even more amplified with us on the kayak side because of the fact that we can't run 40 miles to find grass. I need
Right.
to find the ramp that's closest to that grass so
Yeah,
that I can make a run to it, and get up
right.
there on it.
Well,
But
you see a
yeah,
lot of the controversy right now with the last two major tournaments that have gone on have been, gray areas around the boundary lines.
yep,
And that's, guys, want to get on other guys about fishing areas that they feel is questionable. However, I guarantee those guys that are getting questioned, and you look, these are absolute hammers in our sport. I guarantee that they do as much, if not more, map study,
yep,
um, finding stuff out than the majority of the field they're fishing against. I mean, the guys that are the Russ Snyder's. I mean, I watched the video he put out from last week there, and the dude yes, he did pre-fish quite a bit, but he found stuff that nobody had found.
yep.
And that's the name of the game. And if it means you study your butt off to find that 500-yard stretch of gold, you got to do it, because if not, somebody else is going to find it. There's not a lot of secret spots.
Sure.
Fishing in Colorado, there's definitely not hardly any secrets anymore. I mean, we all have hit the same spots numerous times at our lakes here, but when you're going to those huge bodies of water, you want to try to do as much as studying as you can, and you're seeing it with these guys. And yeah, I mean, I think some rules can get tightened up as far as public launches and what you can get out of your kayak and pull over and
I was
and
going to say,
whatnot.
I think at the very least, I know at least one of the events. I was at one of the events you're speaking about, and at the very least, I think we'll see a revamping and some more clarity put to some of the rule sets.
Right,
That to make sure that we're falling in line with the spirit of the rules. You know what I mean?
right.
And so yeah,
But
hopefully
you look
they'll.
at these guys catch them. They catch
Yep.
them wherever they go, and
Yeah.
they dominate. I mean, they know how to catch them, and because they happen to find some decent areas that other people haven't find, there's no reason to dog on that. I mean,
Yep.
if anything, you should try to not emulate, but maybe kind of see what they do and what you can do in your own game to kind of
Learn from
mimic
it.
that same thing. Yeah, and I'm not saying like try to read the rules and find the gray area. I just think it goes more back to finding something out of the box,
I was going to
whether
say
that be a
the
spot or a
principle of
bait.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, man. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, that's that whole piece of the competitive side, trying to get stronger, trying to get better out there. Dude, you and Jason, you guys battled down to the very end there through the CKB. Our fearless tournament director came in a close third. He and Clay Roberts tied at 292 actually on the points. And you look at that, I mean, all the way back to 10th place, 281, 296. I mean, that's a relatively tight field out there.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, and these are just, Eric, Matt, Caleb, Kenny, the Roberts clan, Sandy, Tim Van Sickler, Mister. I now own a new Hobie from
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
deal. That was a
Congrats to
cool deal.
him. That's awesome. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I'm curious to see, if he's, I don't know if it's, if is he a Hobie guy? I'm
I
not
don't
for sure
know.
what,
I don't
but
know.
it'd be cool to see what he gets with that. Yeah. That was such an awesome prize. Yeah. I mean,
It's a
who wouldn't want
heck
a
of a
new
boat.
kayak? Right.
Yeah, heck of a boat. So, and on the sponsor piece there, and speaking of those out there, you don't have a lot, and you choose to kind of keep yourself thinned down. But one major one that you're part of, you're very proud of, and as you should be, because this is a pretty elite group to be a part of, is Alpha Angler. That's a big one.
Yeah.
How long have
Alpha.
you been with those guys?
I want to say, I think I'm going on my fourth season with those guys. Um, Super cool company. Jake Boomer's the president, and I want to say the year of Brandon Polinick's first AOI is when I actually learned about Alpha. They were really small and they still continue to be. They're fairly small in the rod market.
Sure.
Was my first time kind of learning, what's Alpha Angler. Let me order one of these rods and just see what they're all about, because I've, from Phoenix, St. Croix, Megabass, I had such a gamut of different rods, Shimano. I had so much different stuff. It was more of a hodgepodge. Let me get one and try them out.
Right.
And it changed my fishing literally overnight. I had ordered one of their famous spinning rods called the Wrench.
Right.
Got it in. Immediately just felt it like an extension of my arm.
Wow.
I couldn't explain it at first. Now I know what it is. It's the components, it's the way they're built, it's the way they fit my style of fishing.
Right.
The actions, the list goes on. They are just phenomenal products. But going back to that one rod, it just opened the door. So before I ever was on with Alpha, I wanted to essentially buy the whole lineup of rods,
Wow.
which I did. I basically, outside of two that came on after the fact, I purchased every one of my rods from Alpha first before I ever had asked to join the team.
Right.
After getting all of those and realizing how they have changed my fishing, I felt so passionate about this company that I then approached Jake Boomer and his father-in-law, who's the general manager, and said, "Hey, I'd love nothing more to jump on and help you guys, represent this team the best of my abilities." And they opened their arms and brought me right in.
That's
And
awesome.
and I couldn't ask for a better company to stand behind as far as rods for me. They have gone out of their way to do so much for me. And I hope to continue to stay with these guys through my whole fishing career. I mean, pretty much anything that I need, they custom build to your, what you'd like to do, but they don't sell retail, which I also like. They keep it in house. They're not a big box store company. They stay relatively small, and you stay direct with the company. If you have issues, you talk to the pres. If if you need something fixed, they fix it right away.
That's awesome.
Stellar, phenomenal company. And so been with those guys for a few years. My longest running sponsor, however, is a guy that I hold very dear to my heart, who brought me on when I hadn't even proved anything yet. And that's Flint Pierce with Battle Baits out of Branson, Missouri now. So he's a Table Rock guy. He actually moved from the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, a few years ago, I believe 2 seasons now, to Branson. And Flint has just been nothing but a huge support system for me from day one. Helped me in designing different, I've helped with designing different baits with him, making custom stuff for me on the fly when I need it. I've also turned a lot of guys here in Colorado who have seen some of the stuff I've thrown, and caught and won and been successful with. And I've seen a lot of guys here in Colorado do some ordering of battle stuff. Cody Henley in Utah's, I think he gets quite a bit from battle. Just an excellent guy. And he covers from hand tied spinner baits, jigs. One of my favorite is the drop dead Ned that he offers, which is a skirted Ned rig, basically.
Nice.
But I won't give all the juice on. No, I'm joking. No, that there's some tweaks and some twists and stuff that I've been able to do with some of his baits that have been very successful for me. And so he's been awesome. And yeah, those are my two, I would say, major companies I work with. Very small, super cool guys. They treat me like family. I try to, do what I can. I'm not a huge promoter of products. I just try to show it with my fishing. Yep. I mean, I was successful today. I nailed, some great smallmouths today. I couldn't have done it with, without my rods and stuff. I feel like it's just propelled my fishing to a whole nother level that I felt I could never reach. A few years ago, I was just, I would get dejected. I would fish another tournament and get whooped on by the same guys that, whooped on me 2 tournaments ago or whatnot. But it was just another extension of with these guys of kind of helping keep that competitive and then pursuing that winning attitude of trying to get out and get these tournaments, won and stuff. So super cool on those guys. And then one guy that I love working with is my brother-in-law, and that's Rhino Originals. He's a taxidermist who also does fish replicas. Matter of fact, Alex Rojas I believe he's going to be getting a largemouth back that he caught down at Lake Fork this past spring. I believe he's getting that back within a week or so. So another member that's kind of I've reached out to on getting some stuff done. Second to none on his replica mounts. Now, he also is. Did
he do the one behind you there?
Yeah. That's a one from Colorado here, and then I got about 7 or 8, good bass that he's done, walleyes, whatnot. But they're replica mounts, which is really cool. So you get your fish caught, you get some good pictures, you get your measurements, you send them off to Rhino. He'll order you a form, start building your fish, and then that fish is still swimming. I mean, I'm firm believer on catch and release, especially for bass. Now, trout out here, walleye, any of that stuff, that doesn't bother me at all. I just don't like seeing 5 bass on a stringer. I mean, I know it needs to happen for management and stuff like that. It's just, you won't ever see me doing it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's a whole different can of worms there for sure.
Right.
But that's awesome, man. And that's when you find equipment that you trust in the equipment, you believe in the equipment, and then you have that satisfactory piece inside your head, knowing that you got a company that's got you backed. Man, for me, the All Terrain Tackle is that company. That's my longest running. I think I've been with them for like 6-7 years. I know that group over there. Matt Johnson, who runs the pro staffing piece there. These are like old friends now, at this point. We've been with them for so long, and I never worry if there's an issue, and that goes so far. The confidence, the trust factor, that's a huge deal.
Absolutely.
You run out of a Hobie. That is correct, right? Is it?
Yeah, I'm in a PA 360.
Nice.
Don't get me too started on the 360. I will tell you, I'm not a Hobie elitist by any means. It's just the kayak that I started with and I've continued to fish out of. I was so pumped to get this Hobie 360 when it dropped. I was the first shipment. Me, I believe Mitch Salzman and Kenton Lemon, 2 other great dudes, do anything for you kind of guys. I think we all were in that first shipment of Hobie 360s to get delivered to Colorado. Well, mine came in November, and I got to stare at it for 4 5 months in the garage every day when I come home from work, and it would just sit there, and I couldn't wait to take it out. I take it out. My first trip with that 360 is down at Lake Fork. I'm fishing, I think, a Hobie BOS event, and I'm not too far from Alex Rojas up in Glade, and I kick a fin off. My first time out in the boat, I lose a fin, and if anybody has ever lost a fin on their pedals with a Hobie, I mean, you're pretty much pedaling like a drunk driver. I mean, it's just wobbling and it's a pain. I mean, fortunate I was able to make it back to the ramp. That was the first trip I had taken with the 360. Not too long after that, when we're fishing a tournament back here in Colorado, I had the bearings fall out of my pedals, and I had some steering issues, some clutch issues that were all derived from it being the new boat on the market. I mean, they had some bugs they had to work out. It was just unfortunate for me because I had lost a lot of trust in my Hobie because of it. Fast forward another year, I was down at Lake Fork again with a good buddy of ours, Roger College, and we were about 3 miles from the ramp when my second pair of pedals now under warranty had broke. And had he not been with me, I still might be out there in Lake Fork because he fortunately towed me back to the ramp, and I've had 3 warranty claims on my Hobie, so I'm not throwing a Hobie flag up here because I actually have not been super impressed with the 360. And it's made me fish a little different as far as how I use the 360. Because the trust has been broken there.
I've actually heard of guys that had those issues literally pull it out and put a 180 back in there because they believed it was just more solid. It's, unfortunately, sometimes when companies try to be first to market and they get super excited, maybe the R&D just didn't go the way it should have gone. And, my understanding is, there's obviously Hobie's standing behind their product. They're trying to get the replacement, but like you and I both know, it's cool that they'll support it, cool that they'll replace it, but really, dude, that can't fix, the fact that I'm 3 miles away and it just grenaded on me.
Exactly.
That's,
and if you ever tried to paddle a Hobie PA14 around, you better have arms like Popeye because it's a tough one. And
that thing's a barge, man.
It's a barge. So no, I love the boat itself. It's a beast. It helped me, helps me fish, the way the electronics are set up. Everything on that boat is great, except for I'm always wondering about those pedals, is this going to be the last trip? Yeah.
And we just talked about it. It's the confidence factor. If you don't have that confidence piece, man, the last thing you want to be focused on or thinking about when you're out trying to beat Jason by a 1/4 inch, the last thing you want to be thinking about is your boat pedals. That's just can't be on your mind. You have to be able to put that out and go do what you got to go do. So
I've kind of been on the fence a little bit. I'm probably going to be looking towards getting into a new kayak going into next season. I'm due. I've had this one a few years now. But I don't know what route I'm going to take. I mean, I have a lot of friends that fish out of natives. I have, a lot of, New Canoe. I mean, there's a lot of guys that fish out of other ones that, I don't mind taking a look at either. Like I said, I'm not just direct, solely on Hobie and that's it. Because there's a lot of good boats out there. And I just heard like Native's warranty is 5 years on their products where Hobie's only 3. Well, to make an investment on a $5,000 kayak every couple, 3 years, that's a lot of money to be throwing down. Having that 2 extra years there, that can be huge, especially when we're on the water as much as we are, traveling. I mean, stuff can happen. And the last thing we want to worry about is if our yaks are going to break down on us out there. Yeah.
No, you can't have that for sure. And I can tell you from a business standpoint for the year 2023 moving forward, as part of Team New Canoe is really going to make a concerted heavy effort push in the propulsion game. We're going to try to really assert ourselves, as if you're thinking of a kayak with a motor of some sort, we want, absolutely to have our name come up in the conversation because, we get it. The Hobie pedal drive system hands down is, still, even with its slew of issues, nothing can beat that hull and pedal design. I mean, I personally have been running with my motor full throttle and watched a Hobie against the current of the river pull away from me.
Go by you?
Yeah, absolutely. And dude was like sipping his coffee, talking to me on his way by, and I'm like, wow. So we all know that. And so why try to, compete against, one of those areas? Sure. I will say that, the area where, New Canoe can start to is the fact that out of this one craft, you can pedal it with our pivot drive system, or you can throw a gas or an electric motor and you can throw it on the front, throw it on the back, or really, work it out. So I know that's definitely going there. And like you said, Native's been doing a lot of work. I've heard rumor that they're going to possibly unleash that Titan 13.5 again.
Oh, sweet.
And allow that thing coming back out. Dude, that thing is just an absolute battleship.
Yeah.
It's like one of the only kayaks on the market that the internal area actually has a resin coating in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's what gives it that extra rigidity on the inside of that thing.
Super cool.
And that's only on the 13.5, I think is what.
Wow.
Yeah. But they stopped production of it a while back, by understanding. And again, I don't have this to be 100% true, but just it's from pretty solid source that was talking to me about it. But yeah, it looks like they're opening back up to start bringing that thing back out again.
Awesome.
So a lot of cool stuff.
You bringing New Canoe to the light for us here in Colorado. I personally I've heard of New Canoe, but hadn't really looked into any of their stuff until we were down at fishing a KBF event at OHIV in Texas a few years back, and I had won a New Canoe hat. And I think, there you go.
Bam, buddy.
Right on, buddy. So that hat is from an OHIV event, KBF event. And I was like, oh, New Canoe, not for sure what they're about. Wasn't until I talked to you and kind of got to see your yak and stuff where you were huge to bringing that light to Colorado. I wasn't aware of anybody who fished out of one.
Yep.
If they did, I'm sorry if I'm forgetting it, but I wasn't aware of it. And to have that platform that you brought on to open people's eyes to not necessarily having to jump into a Hobie out of the gates or not have to jump into a native. You're catching an audience for both right there. And that's huge.
And it's,
so keep pushing that.
It's a company that's, hunting, fishing. That's at the root of it. It is like you said, it's a small company. We're not massive. All the, basically the kayaks are built out of Wisconsin, type thing. So,
awesome.
That's cool. It's they definitely have their area, like you said, you and I both have talked about this. There are so many good boats, so much good equipment out there. It's such a personal thing, what you are looking for.
What feels good to you. Right.
So, but yeah, absolutely. Next year, dude, we should actually set up a time where we'll go hit one of these and we'll rig out one of the unlimiteds and let you take it out and we'll
absolutely
go beat on a little local lake
fun.
And then give you a firsthand chance to at least see it up close and personal.
Well, I actually, on the Hobie talk, this season, I actually got my better half, Amy, got her a Lynx this year, a Hobie Lynx and it goes back to having that 180 drive. And the thing is it's just phenomenal. That drive is just cool, but I don't think she's going to let me mess around on that one too much. That kayak's really cool. It's 47 pounds unrigged.
Wow.
I can throw it on a rack. I basically can slide my PA into the back of my Tundra and then put hers up on top and we can just motor around. She absolutely loves that Lynx.
That's cool.
And it kind of gives you the best of both worlds. You you can use it kind of as a paddle board. You can kind of use it just as the paddle yak. You can use it with your pedals. So going back to what you said, it opened my eyes up even more, even with that links, to start looking at other options here.
Yeah. Yep.
What lighter stuff, to where if we go to certain bodies of water, I don't have to take this 150-pound rig, beast out every time. I can get something lighter with a little motor in the back, and I could get comfortable using that on smaller waters or tighter waters, or if we have to travel, to where there's a lot of trees and cypress or anything like that. So
Dude, I've thought about that so much myself. We have an F10 in our lineup in New Canoe that's 10 and a half, 10-foot range, still 39 inches wide, still wide little platform.
Cool.
And I've thought about that. I'm like, dude, that would fit in the back of my truck. So it's like 60 pounds soaking wet,
So cool.
slide that thing in there compared to the trailering of my barge that I have out there. In the Unlimited, it's lighter than the Hobie for sure, but it's also, it doesn't have the high sidewalls like your Hobie does.
Yeah.
It's more, looks kind of like a canoe in a way, with its
cool.
shorter down, but yeah, no, I get you there, man. And finding that mobility factor holds a lot of value after you've spent some time hauling these monsters around that we have. It's like, for some of these smaller events, or if I just want to go fun fishing or something, I don't want to have to totally rig out the battleship, and take
right.
It would be,
you've seen that, is that like with Drew Gregory, I mean, I don't think you could have got in or even tried to get into some of the water he got into with the Hobie. I mean, he had to maneuver his way in there. And if we get into tournaments where we're traveling and we're going to have to go up creeks, 10, 12 miles, you're not going to do it so often with a PA 14. I mean,
yep.
You're going to want to get something smaller, more maneuverable. I mean, even Rust, with his skinny boat and had his motor for the national championship last week. I mean, you see what he's motoring through, and that stuff I'm looking at, I'm not so sure with the current and as wide as that Hobie is, if I could even try to fish competitively in those same places he is, and he's making it look flawless in that little boat. So, yeah, there's a definite, the more tournaments we see, and hopefully more waters that open up, you're going to see, I think, guys who might have both, might have, a big Hobie for a smallmouth event where, you're on a big body of water, or you might choke down and get your new canoe or like that 10-footer and run up a creek and do awesome up there. So I think we'll see that more often. Yeah,
I agree.
Especially with the real competitive guys where they're, using multiple yaks for multiple events. I think that'll be common for sure.
And I think when we start also venturing off of the, beat up lakes that all the bass boats go to, when we finally start, stretching our wings, showing the advantage of the kayak side, where we can go to some phenomenal fisheries that you probably haven't heard of yet. And we can show you just how awesome these places are that couldn't hold a field of 200 boats.
Right.
It can put a field of 80 to 100 kayaks out there, because we can maneuver through this stuff, we can get around. And so, yeah, I agree with you 100%. I've often thought of it that having one yak, loaded out this way and another one this way, and I'm down on my trailer, since I have a dual carry, and running out with that going, yeah, I could see that, even one for practice, one for tournament day, whatever you need, but being able to get into different areas, different applications.
Well, if especially as serious as we are, I mean, when we are planning our trips months in advance and we get to go time, and say if you're in a Hobie and you bust your pedals and they tell you it's 2 weeks till you get another set, or who knows, with shipping or parts or any of that stuff, having at least another option.
Yep.
It's already kind of the thing where it probably wouldn't hurt if you have the means, if you have the space to get you a second boat, maybe not as hardcore as your main boat, but at least something that won't keep you from at least hitting the tournament, if something was to happen. And that's something I'm going to be looking towards next season too, is probably going with a new main kayak, because I've had mine for a few years now, but also keeping in the back of my mind something that I can have that on a drop of a hat if something happens. I don't want to have to miss a tournament because my boat's broke down or whatnot. I still want to at least try to give it a chance. And like you said, that little 10-footer, that new canoe or something like that would just be perfect. At least give you an option to get out in the water and not have to, if you have angler of the year on the line by 1 point and your tournament's on the line and something happens, you don't want to be not able to give it a chance because your drive's broke or whatever. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's before the days of tons of service tents at some of these major events. It was not uncommon to find elites out there literally in like one of the rod lockers, an entire spare trolling motor.
Oh, absolutely.
Stuffed right in the boat. So in case something happened to this one and it grenaded out or whatever, these guys are literally they're finding a quick piece of shore they can get to, and they're swapping trolling motors out middle of the event. No different than swapping out props. I mean, those props cost more than, half the time, the any of the pedal drive systems we have,
right.
And so you got to have these extra components and parts around it. So it's, as our sport evolves, gets more teeth, gets that identity. I agree 100% with you, man. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of these things flexing around here and people, looking for that next advantage, that comfort zone.
Yeah, anything to keep you on the water. I mean, that's the main thing. Is none of us want that FOMO during a tournament. I mean,
exactly.
All the boys are out there wrecking them, and I actually had a tournament up at Boyd a few years ago, where we had all launched, and I had broke my pedals right at launch, and everybody's, it was a shotgun start from the same ramp, and everybody's going every which way. And just to show you how guys are around here, he's no longer with us anymore, and we wish him the best out in Tennessee with his new endeavor. But Ronald Southward, he actually stopped his tournament pedaling to his spot to come over to check on me right at launch to say, hey man, I seen you broke your pedals. Is there anything I can do to help out? And, do you need another paddle? What do you need? I mean, this guy literally, I don't know where he was in standings or anything, but he's a stick. He always is. He's very competitive, but just to stop and even ask. And, I'm flipping out because I'm like, is my day done? I mean, what's going to happen? And, just even him coming over and talking to me, making sure everything was cool. It calmed me down enough to still go out and finish it, even with broken pedals. Still finish and have a decent tournament.
That's awesome.
But that feeling I don't want anymore. I don't like having that feeling of limping along through a tournament and because I just don't feel like you're ever fishing up to your abilities when that's in the back of your mind. So with that being said, from here on, out, I've always thought, should I get an extra boat? Before the 360, I did have 2 sets of 180 drives for my old Hobie. Just always keeping that peace of mind that's the last thing I want to worry about is my boat out there. I need to worry about making sure this fish hits the net.
Well, and for those that are unaware that maybe coming from the boaters side that are watching or listening to the podcast, losing, the 180 drive or the 360 drive is the equivalent to losing your trolling motor. I mean, literally actually losing your big motor, in all honesty, for a lot of these yaks, because that's their only power source. It's not just the big motor. It's also the one they use for maneuvering, inside. So yeah, dude, I've had trolling motor issues in the middle of a tournament and had to figure out a way, to go bargain and parlay myself a new prop, because I had literally shred all of the blades off of it at Prairie du Chien on the Mississippi River. I found a shoal bed and just turned the trolling motor the wrong way right into them, and just tore the whole thing. Had a slightly warped prop shaft on there, but I was able to get another prop on it. Paid a heavy price because it was after hours, and I got a company that was willing to come back down and open the door and sell it to me.
Oh, that
And
was
it still
nice.
had a wobble the rest of the time, that I was out there. But it's like, you know what? It's better than not
It's
having
better
one.
than nothing. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a horrible, horrible feeling if you lose your propulsion like that for sure. So
It's just like losing that last crankbait too. I mean, if you lose that last crankbait that you only had two of, and you're on tournament day, you think the world's ending, and but
because you're
no,
convinced that's the only color they're
that's
going to
the
bite.
only color that they're biting on. Yep, and you just busted against the rocks. So yeah, so I think we've all been there before too. But no, I mean it's you want to take your boat and the safety behind it and maintenance. I mean, as serious as what you're throwing in your tackle box for the tournament.
Absolutely.
You want to always make sure you got spare pieces of whatever you can. And that's another great thing about our guys here in the club. I mean, guys will go out of their way to make sure they can do whatever to help you to make sure you're on the water. I mean, we
Totally.
are fierce competitors, and I know there's a few guys in the club that know kind of how fierce I am out there. I've been vocal a few times, guys getting too close and stuff, but off the water or broke down or anything, we are a very tight group and do
Agreed.
anything for anybody kind of guys. And that's how we roll. But yeah, boat maintenance is huge. Always stay on top of that.
Yep.
You never want that to be an issue when you're in your on any day. I mean, that can even ruin a fun day of fishing too. I mean,
Totally.
you're out there trying to have a good time and something happens because you might have been neglectful on your maintenance or whatnot.
It's one of the reasons why I, after every event, multiple reasons, but this is an additional one is I go through and clean the boat from head to toe. Everything comes out. She gets power sprayed out, gets washed down. I've always said this, when you do that, you get such an intimate understanding of your craft, because if you are hand washing, man, you are looking at every bit of, every crease, every, weld, whatever, if it's in a big boat or a small boat. And
Yes.
not only are you doing awesome for your gear, the conservation side, you keep making sure the yak's clean. So the next body of water you go to, you're not bringing any, but yeah, that maintenance piece, dude, I found so many like loose, different screws and stuff. I didn't realize how much, those things loosen up just over one event. I was like, oh my gosh, that's my landing gear, dude. I need to make sure that is tight.
Absolutely.
And so little things like that. So it's, yeah, I couldn't agree more, man.
If I don't know about, I'm assuming you park yours in the garage.
Yep.
If you don't clean your boat after a tournament out at Swanson or somewhere, and you come back and leave that in the garage, the next morning when your wife goes out, she's going to let you know right away you need to get that thing out of there. And
something is dead in the garage.
Yeah, we've all been guilty of that. So no, it's always good to get your stuff cleaned out. For us, reaching into some areas where our drive goes, you don't want to. I mean, you could have as simple as a piece of tagline that gets wrapped up where it shouldn't and can cause something to go wrong. But no, definitely checking for cracks or any of that stuff like loose bolts, fish finder cables, battery. I mean, battery. How many times I've heard guys that get out on the water, start fishing, and have battery issues because their connector is loose, or they didn't as simple as have a roll of maybe electrical tape that they can pin their stuff back down with, and now they've lost their fish finder for the day, and they lost their points, and now they're fishing blind. And then it's just a snowball effect from there. And it could be as simple as just a connector on your battery is loose, and you just don't have time to mess with that stuff during a tournament. You want everything to just run as smooth as possible, so that your only thing to worry about is getting the fish caught and hoping your gear will do the rest.
I'm almost glad when something goes on during practice, the pre-fishing period, because that way at least it's getting out of the way. It's one of the reasons in my crew cab truck you can only get two people in it, because the entire back is tackle and tools and clothes and everything that I need on the road, out there. But yeah, it's like, get that stuff out of the way, so that way come tournament morning, all I'm thinking about is catching the greens and the browns, and that's it.
That's right. I actually added the deck system, truck bed system, to my Tundra this last year, and it's actually, I was a little hesitant at first because I didn't know how was this going to set up. Is it going to be more of a hassle or not? But it's all a part in how you run your game. And I can't get into those drawers when my boat's in there. So I have to know ahead of time, okay, gear needs to be, stowed away in there before I load my kayak. I'm actually going to probably be leaning more like you to a trailer
Yep.
next year, just because for that same reason, trying to get into that deck system, which has been huge because I'm the same way. The back seat of my Tundra is ridiculous. It's yeah. I mean, I've slept back there. I mean, there's clothes, there's
Yeah.
all your rain gear, your extra tackle, all that stuff back there. But now I have a really good dedicated tool side and spare parts side on one side of the deck system. The other side, more on the kayak, spare parts for that, fishing,
Nice.
that kind of stuff. Everything is just, where it needs to be now.
Got your
And I don't
system.
have to second guess anything. It's a great system, and it works for me. And I would recommend that if you do a lot of traveling in a truck, to look at the deck system, because those drawers are nice. They lock. Then your tailgate will close and lock, so you kind of have it's double locked, and they've worked out great. And I plan on staying with that system now if
Yep.
I go into another vehicle, because I use it enough, and it's that beneficial in fishing and traveling. It just makes it for a nice area to store more gear, to just know you have, and a good peace of mind. So
And it's
definitely look into that.
it's that rinse and repeat, man. You got to get your system down if you're going to do this, on any level
Yeah.
that, excuse me, that takes you out of just doing, local stuff. Even for that matter, if you're just doing local, but you're getting serious about it, you want to maximize your efficiency. So yeah, we've toyed with looking at the deck system. I've done some work with S Cargo up out of Loveland up there. It's an awesome company.
Yeah.
That's where I bought my topper from.
Oh,
They've got
sweet.
a ton of truck accessories up there, and so yeah, we were looking at that pretty close there, but we're not 100% sure where we're going to be with the truck and everything
Well,
else over the next few years. So
the bummer, and I will say on this end, with that deck system, is Boondocks actually designed a T-bone bed extender to accommodate the deck system.
oh wow.
Supposedly. Now I went ahead and ordered one, and it didn't fit. I had to get another one ordered, and it's still not as tall as it needs to be. So they need to kind of work on the engineering part of it. Now, it makes my kayak sit kind of at an angle now when it's in the back of my truck. Therefore, I have to have a stability support foam up into the front to grab the nose of.
Right.
So for hauling in the bed of the truck, the deck system, I would say, is not the best choice.
Yeah.
In a pinch, you can do it, and I do it now, and travel just fine with it. It's a little wonky to load it on an incline when your feet are digging in the sand and stuff.
Right.
It's a little bit tough, but just to let you know that it's not exactly a good fit, even though they said they made it and they extended that for the deck system.
Sure.
For my truck, for my Tundra, it's still a little bit off. Another reason why I'm thinking going more towards the trailer side for 23.
Yep.
Just because I see how much more beneficial that can be.
I think if you look at any of the bigger yaks out there and you look, it doesn't take a whole lot of time before you see guys going into trailers with the big yaks. The guys that are still putting them in the back of the trucks, either, just diehard, truck haulers. But it's for the most part, I mean, I would say the lion's share, you got your few that don't, but the lion's share have gone to the trailers. I can say it is, firsthand experience. I did truck half the season, trailer the last couple events, and man, night and day. My feet get more wet on the trailer putting it in the water than they did, coming out of the back of the truck.
Sure.
And there's some advantages with the truck, where you can launch and such. But I do love I can rig my yak completely to the nines, even the rods and everything go in, and I literally kick it off the trailer and it goes into the water, pull it up to the shore, and I'm out.
Yeah.
Walk back down with my life vest, my PFD, and bang, I'm out. I'm ready to rock.
Makes it nice.
That is nice, as opposed to hauling all my stuff out of the truck, down to the shoreline and such. I do appreciate that.
And I consider myself, I mean, I'm getting a little long in the tooth now. I mean, I'm up I'm in my 40s now, and no, I still feel like I'm in decent shape, but I'll tell you, loading those Hobies into a back of a pickup. I mean,
dude,
literally, it's the kind of loading where, I mean, unless you're a real tank of a guy, you could easily tweak your back, and that could
easily.
be right before your tournament starts. So you got to be smart too, and not always be muscle on everything, because the last thing I want to do is try to unload or load my Hobie before a tournament out of the back of the truck and tweak myself because I'm trying to hold it a certain way or trying to get it off. And now I'm fishing miserable the rest of the day. Once again,
Exactly.
going back to a something that you could have controlled ahead of time. And so, yeah, there's a lot more to it than just, throwing it in the back of the truck and going. When you're as hardcore as we are getting to be in this, you want everything just to run as fluid as possible. And I
Yep.
watch, like yourself, Kenny, Kenton Lemon, Strawbridge, the guys who have nice trailers. And I envy you guys because, while I'm sitting there struggling and pushing that thing up, it's pretty easy gliding for you guys. And it's just a smart thing to do, if we're going to continue to put the miles on and do what we do.
And when you have those
Go
bigger
ahead.
yaks, that's the key.
Yeah, the bigger yaks. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. When we're fishing from these big ones. But no, it is still fun too to throw something, in the back of a pickup and not have to tow anything
Yep.
and just take off however you want. But I think the reality is, with the gear we haul now, the rods we bring, it's the weight that we're putting in with our new batteries or motors or whatnot.
I've actually got
The
I've
better
actually
thing.
I've actually got plans for one of the events at the All American. Is called Mind Lands in Kansas.
What a sweet place that looks like.
Dude, but there's 150 different little lakes that you can fish on in this area. So what I'm
Wow.
actually considering doing is going down there, hauling it down with the trailer, but then on pre-fishing and tournament day, I have a feeling I might go back to the bed of the truck just so that way
Yeah.
I can quickly in and out. I can get back into some of these smaller little areas and I can drop it out. I just need to come up with a more effective cart. I have to say firsthand, I'm not a fan of the landing gear style. I've got both
Okay.
the Boondocks and I have the sidekick system.
Okay.
Dude, the stress it puts on the rails and on the hull,
Really?
if
Okay.
you just have even the slightest bit of weight in that thing, to me, it just the cart is for the heavier yaks. The cart is the way to go, and
Okay.
so I have a feeling that's what I may toy around with. That it's just where can I put that bed extender? Do I even need a bed extender for that little bit of running around I'm going to do? It's not going to be back there that long. So yeah, I might toy around with that where long haul it on the trailer so that way I can but once I'm there and I can unload at a hotel, maybe just throw it in the
Use
back
the
there
extender.
and yeah, run around like that so I can get in and out of those little places like that because
Well,
the
one
trailer
thing
is a
that I did.
trick.
Oh yeah. One thing that I've done with the bed extender, and everybody, they kind of look at it a little goofy, is I actually took big pieces of carpet, rolled it around the where the padding is on the bed extender, and then gorilla taped around that carpet so that they can still spin.
Yep.
And what that does for loading and unloading is almost works as a guide to kind
Yeah.
of help the boat in and out,
That's
where
awesome.
it's not catching. I mean, it's a totally wonky rig design, but it works great.
I was gonna
And
say, man, it's functionality is everything.
it helps a ton. So, if you do this tournament you're talking about where you think you're going to load up in the truck, I would just in your bed extender, I would just do kind of the same thing, almost like a foam roller kind of deal.
Yep.
They have to be able to move. That's the major thing. But once I go back and forth, it's really fairly easy. It's just the initial getting the boat onto the bed extender and raising it up where you
Yep.
want to be careful. I mean, if you're doing that, a few times a day, like at this lake you're mentioning, where you might be hitting up 20 of those spots of water. After you're on the water coming in and out, that's where injuries can happen. And I just stress, just
Totally.
always be very careful with loading and unloading. You could twist your ankle, you could bust a knee, you can do a lot of
Easy.
different stuff, so just be careful with the heavier yaks. Now the light
Yep.
ones, you can just throw them in there. But I
For
noticed
sure.
that this year quite a bit in the different places we went. Just watching where you're stepping and stuff when you're unloading, and just being, careful, because you don't want anything to affect your day of fishing,
Nope.
and a busted up ankle, or you trip and your phone may fall in the water. Who knows? There's a ton of different stuff,
Yeah.
and you just got to be careful out there, in the dark. That's another big one, trying to unload in the dark
I was
and
gonna say
get down to the shore.
that's almost every day for us when we're out there during
Yeah,
summertime. We're out before the sun comes up. So, well, listen, man, I can't thank you enough for sitting down, talking fishing with us here,
absolutely.
talking about the club. You had an amazing, awesome freaking season. I, for one,
Thank you.
I feel better as an angler, the fact that I had to fish against you out there. You helped me in my transition into these kayaks, learning, understanding, kind of getting an idea of, seeing somebody at the top of their game out there where you're at. It was huge. As I said before, all you guys at the CKB were you got my loyalty, man. I'm in through and through. I absolutely love fishing. It's a priority for us to make sure we're hitting as many of the CKB events as we can. Which I
Awesome.
think I can hit all but maybe one. There's a All American conflict on one event.
I think the
Um,
one we were just talking about, isn't it? I think is it the minefield one?
that might be
I
conflicting
think
with the
that's it.
Norton, Kansas event,
I,
which sucks
yeah,
because Norton looks like it'd be a lot of fun. But
yeah. I seen Matt Flanagan out there just wrecking them
he
here
was
a
tearing them
few
up.
weeks ago. Another guy who we got to watch come in this year, and just I mean, this every tournament he got better, and I told him
Stronger and
this,
stronger.
last week, just stronger, and telling him stick to your own style, buddy, and just roll with it, because you could see the progression in Matt
Totally.
throughout the whole year. And again, he's another one that's not afraid to travel, and along
Yep.
with yourself. And that's the CKB, that's you see the guys in that group that aren't afraid to venture off and not only just fish, our tournament schedule with a few out of state, but go out of town. I mean, I've been in Louisiana and watched Paul Roth just wreck them. I mean, go out there and just wreck them. Jason, same thing out. Go to other bodies of water, and it's so cool to see guys from Colorado who finish good. You at Lewis and Clark this year finishing third. How cool is that to have a
Yeah.
guy from Colorado? Just we're such a flyby state when it comes to bass fishing, that
Yeah.
and certain sports and stuff too, probably. But it's so cool to see some guys coming from this way,
Yep.
and going out to different bodies of water and excelling. And hopefully we get some more, this next year to get out and about too. So yeah, I thank you so much for having me on. I know we're kind of long winded, but we're talking about what we love,
That's right.
and everybody knows me. That's in the club knows I'll do anything for anybody, anytime that I can. Just please stay within a cast length of me when we're fishing out there, so I don't have to holler at you. That's the main thing. You can wave at me from a while back, but if we're in tournament mode, you might get a frown if you come in too tight on me, and that's just because we're all competitive, but
I
we'll
think
definitely
that's pretty
we'll shake.
commonplace. I think people
Yeah,
should. I mean, we've been fishing long enough to know. What this is, dude's area. Okay, so stay back
right.
out of it. If you're out in the middle of a lake and there's enough of a area, the standard rule of thumb is, hey man, mind if I get me a little bit of this over here? And if no, I'd rather you not. Cool. All right. Well, good luck.
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
hey, yeah,
yeah,
go
for
ahead.
the most.
If you stay down there and I'll fish this side, you take that. Cool. We're all right.
You have to
But
be
yeah,
vocal. Yeah, you have to be
yeah,
vocal, because you got to know, where guys' stance are on how they are. Some guys, they don't care at all. You can come right in on them and they don't mind at all. But I'm a little bit different when we're
I'm
in full
I'm
tournament
right
mode.
there with you.
I like to
I
kind of, you're my competitor that day, and
yeah.
I'm out to, I'm trying to get you, and
Well, and
but
when I'm fishing and working an area, I want to know that I'm working the area. I don't want there to be, because I mean, it's inevitable, man. I'm sitting here working. Yeah, go ahead, come on in. And he, yanks a 4 out of there, whatever. I'm going to be like,
It happens.
dude, I don't know if I can talk to you now after this event.
Right.
So yeah, I'm right there with you. I like my space. I try to make sure I always extend that to other anglers. I don't ever, if I ever, encroach, it is by pure accident. I didn't see. I have met guys, at a point where didn't see him till we both got there. It's like,
Oh yeah.
it's like,
That
wow,
happens
okay.
quite a bit, especially in our little kayaks when we're sitting
Yep.
so low to the water. You're working a point, you got a guy on the other side of the point, and you guys are working together, and boom, you meet right there in the middle.
Yep.
And that does happen. Yeah, that does. But no, this is a killer group of guys.
Yep.
Guys that have been teaching me for quite a few years now. I mean, a lot of these guys took me under the wing a few years ago also, and they wouldn't tell me what to do. They would just, help me follow my own direction, I guess you could say,
and
my own path.
That's the best thing you can ever do for a competitive angler. It's guys want, all the information, this and this and this. You don't want that. Trust me. You got to do it your way. And just getting that advice to help you along that is so huge. So, well, listen, man, again, thank you again so very much for coming on here. Absolutely. We're going to go ahead and we'll get this thing back. Hopefully I can piece this together from our little dropped off connection there. It'll check out, but we will absolutely plan on having you back on here. Hopefully I'm going to take some of what we talked about off air there on the possibility we can get, maybe some live coverage coming from some of these events here, man. That super cool.
Oh, I'm telling you. I mean, I might be speaking out of line here, but I think even a little bit of a live aspect of interviewing or catching a guy coming off the water. Maybe the guy had a great day. Maybe the guy was leading one day and something happened. I mean, some guys might not want to talk, right out of the gates, if they're having a bad day or not. But I'll tell you, if you could somehow incorporate a live aspect, there's nothing out there for us right now. I think we were talking, it's our tournament directors are already stretched thin as it is with what they have to deal with. That it's sometimes it's 3-4 days before we even get a recap on how the fishing went. And some of the anglers will post here and there how they did and stuff, but it's all after the fact. And to be able to catch somebody or two dudes that are battling it out at the end of a tournament so close, like Jason and I were with AOI, that suspense, if you could just catch a little bit of that and open that up to people that haven't seen that side of what we do, I think would be killer, man. And I back you 100% on that, and I would help you out with whatever you need to on that end for sure, man.
Yeah, we'll mess around with it for sure, and I absolutely, as some of the cool stuff that gets dropped, any news like that, I'd love to have you come back here, man. Having your knowledge, get your opinion on these things. It's always good to chew the cud, on different topics out there and see different
chew the cud. I like that. So yeah, that's now you're aging us a little bit there, buddy. That's awesome.
I just dated us.
I'll be back anytime you want, buddy. I'll help you out with whatever you need.
All right, brother. Well, thank you very much. And we'll go ahead and wrap this up, folks. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Check out Trev online there. Watch the CKB, and you'll see all kinds of cool stuff going down. Next season looks like it's going to be just as awesome as this one.
Absolutely.